Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm Roberto Shorty. We're looking at news from the Fallout today, and I'm not going to lie, this is one that I've had on my radar for some time, pretty much entirely due to the Chris Condon of it all, because he is a fantastic writer. Came across his work accidentally a few years ago. I'd ordered something that had a cool title called That Texas Blood. That just kind of speaks to me. There's something about it which makes me think of a Wild West hardball detective kind of thing. And it turns out it did go in that kind of route. It was far more contemporary than the Wild West, but it played around with the tropes of the genre really effectively. Also did what I really like and played around with some horror, but beautifully, never fully committed to the supernatural in a way I found really, really compelling. Another book I really like called Thistlebone does the same kind of thing. I like the fact that there could be horror and stuff, and it could be unexplained phenomena, but I also could be a bunch of people doing terrible things to each other and doing it in such a way that it's interesting to ask those questions. Followed up with the Enfield Gang Massacre, which feels very much like it's just part of the same universe, but committed far more to the Wild West vibe, it being an actual Wild West comic book, but he managed to avoid an awful lot of stuff which bugs me about some storytelling within the Wild West. He didn't have the great man of history trope going on. He moved away from just the black hats versus the white hats. He, in fact, kind of avoided an awful lot of the expansionist rhetoric about how good that is compared to how terrible also the people who are already in North America, and instead looked at what it was like for people like ground level to survive under the hypercapitalism that was the Wild West expansionist era. Brilliant books, both of them. And I'm fairly sure he's done some other bits and pieces which I've been aware of, and it's like, yeah, cool, he's a good writer. But this is the first one since those two where I'm like, right, because he's getting to do something his own again. He's getting to create his own world, his own mythos, his own reality, and he can do it in a way which isn't just falling into Wild West or Wild West adjacent. He's doing something which, if anything, looks far closer to the prologue to a post-apocalyptic survival story. The first thing that came to my mind when I was reading it was, is this what led to Cormac McCarthy's The Road? It could very well have been, but we don't know. There's so many unanswered questions, but it's fine. It's only issue one. You don't have to answer all those questions. Now, what it does in this comic book is show off how good Condon is at writing. It has a fantastic sense of time and place in terms of dialogue used, setting it in, and how people are responding to each other. On that note, some of this fantastic dialogue early on when we get what could be one or even maybe even two-dimensional characters, but instead we get a bit more of a sense of who they are through how they're doing their jobs. And it's, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to gild the lily too much on this one. If you're a drill sergeant or some kind of commissioned officer, you're going to behave in a certain way in the situation, and it doesn't go much beyond that, but it goes beyond it just enough to be interesting with the small amount of space and time these characters are given, because it leads then up to the event. And I'm not going to spoil too much of what happens at the event or the lead up to it, but I will say we do get some fantastic world building, some fantastic character building, and once we get to the event, the horror ramps up to a significant degree, and this is more pure horror than anything else he's done, which is like hinted at it in the past. But it isn't really the horror of it all which made me like sit and pay attention. There's a knack for pacing, which I talk about when it comes to horror, and why I think movies work better than TV shows in terms of how you can do a rise and fall of tension and threat, because you can't keep it all the way up all the time. It becomes tiresome, and you actually want that payoff. You want something to happen to give you a chance to breathe and realise, oh shit, a terrible thing has happened, or they've survived a terrible thing, and then you can build it up again. There's quite a nice rhythm and flow to it. In a comic book, it's a little bit harder to do that. You don't get the jump scare kind of moments to shock that tension and break it. In this one, we do, however, get Condon showing his absolute total control of timing, because we do get a, not necessarily rise and fall, rising and stuttering, like staccato levels of tension and threat, paid off with violence and flight, and then building up as a chase, and then more violence. It really is quite nicely done in terms of making you stay tense the entire time without it being tiresome, even in just one issue. But what helps this significantly is the artwork of Jeffrey Allen Love. And I've not really seen his work before. I think I may recognise some work he's done elsewhere, but I've not really followed his work enough to know who he was. But he does some brilliant things with just blacks, whites, and greys. And I can't really give you very good examples one by showing you on a camera here, on part of a video. Go and find the comic book. Go to the comic store and just open it up and flick through it, you'll see exactly what I mean. Because mostly he just uses black, whites, and greys, but when he just goes for nothing but black on white, the silhouettes still manage to have dynamism to them. He puts in detail when he needs to get like facial expressions, which are brilliantly done, but there's also a sense of texture and depth to the greys of it, which adds like a sense like you could touch it and feel it, which is brilliant. I love it when it feels far more organically done like that. And I don't know if it is. I've said this a few times before now. The digital paint tools are so effective that I could be totally fooled by it, but even so, the control of it is brilliantly done. I honestly so happy I put this on my pull list and can't wait to see how it plays out. The story beats I want to see explored more. The art I just want injected directly into my vein. Honestly, one of the best things I've read. Absolutely love it. That's it for me for now though. Until I see you all again, look after you everyone. Stay safe. Bye.